are you right now? Are you on the Big Island?
Yeah, I'm on the Big Island, Kona side. Been here for about almost 20 years. So
You've been there for about 20 years. The Greenwells have been there for considerably longer, and
yes,
we're going to learn about that.
yeah,
But first, it's great to see you.
too.
You and I went to high school together, class of '88, Punahou. We've seen each other a couple times since then, but not that often. But I will tell a story that involves, I guess, you and your family, and maybe that can start things off.
Okay.
About 10 years ago, I took a family vacation to the Big Island, and I took a tour of your family's coffee estate. But I remember they showed us some coffee plants. They're about 150 years old
Yeah.
on your property. And I was just kind of blown away that there had been, coffee beans growing on the land for that long. And here was a tree
I
that was
know.
still
They're
alive.
still alive.
It's amazing.
So though that's my cousins. Those are my cousins. Yeah. That land was owned by the first Greenwell that came. Henry Nicholas Greenwell. He came from England. He ended up coming here, landed here in 1850, and decided to start a life here. It's kind of a cool story. I'm really glad that he didn't stay in England. I like it here.
Yeah, so I did sort of cheat before this conversation, and I Wikipedia'd Greenwell, and I came across Henry Nicholas Greenwell, born in England, 1826. So he was kind of buffeted by major events in history, right? He went from the Irish potato famine, then he ends up in the Bay Area, and it's the gold rush. Then he goes to Hawaii, and he basically kind of created the demand or created the international awareness of Kona coffee, right?
Yeah. I think he won some cupping contest. So he was able to purchase land too when he got here, which was really cool. Lucky for us. So my great grandfather purchased land from the king. So that's kind of neat. Well, my great grandfather used to take his cattle down to sell it down in Kailua Pier. And his name was Frank. And the Hawaiian translation of Frank is Palani. So Palani Road that goes from Holualoa down to Kailua Kona, right to the pier, was named after my great grandfather. So it's kind of neat.
So basically, there's a lot of Greenwells, right? I mean, how many Greenwells are there today? Are they in Hawaii? Are they global? Like, where are the Greenwells?
Well, this is a cool thing. We just had a family reunion that I organized, and I think we had about 150 people come. We had a few from England, some from Boston, various places on the East Coast, West Coast, and all my cousins helped out. And we had, it was like 3 different days of events. It was really fun. So my dad was born and raised on the Big Island. And then he was sent to boarding school at Punahou. So he grew up sort of in that ranching, lifestyle, herding calves and branding and all that kind of stuff. But, when it was time to go to high school, he got shipped away to Oahu when Punahou was called Oahu College, and he boarded there. And he has lots of fun stories about what that was like. And then he would come home for summers and vacations to help on the ranch and things. And then when he went to college, he went to University of Arizona. And that's where he met my mom on a blind date, which was blind for her, but not him. And my mom was adamant that we all go to Punahou because she really wanted us to have a good education. So I thank her for that. And so my dad started a trucking company. He had Peterbilt and then GMC and Kenworth, the dealerships on Oahu. So he was a truck salesman. And so we would, sometimes go to work with him or, help him move trucks now and then. Once I got my license, that was kind of fun.
So your dad kind of grew up as a cowboy, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, did he have traits? Did he look like a cowboy? Like later in his life, would you see him do stuff and think like, yeah, that guy grew up on the land just because of what he knew how to do?
Totally. Yeah. He was, so my dad, he passed away about 6 years ago. But what a character he was. Yeah, he was totally a cowboy, maybe not in the sense of, just cows and horses and things like that, but he kind of just did things his way, and made no apologies about it. So
In what way was he a character? Was he kind of rough and tumble? Did he have a sense of humor? Did he have a temper? Like what was he like?
he had all of it. So let's see, some examples that he'd probably be really irritated that I share with you. But whenever he would come pick us up at Punahou, he would he worked, sun up to sundown, and he did not have time to wait for anybody ever. So when he would come down Palm Drive to pick us up, if we weren't waiting there, he would continue on and go home. And then we were like, find your own way home. And he'd honk maybe once and then be gone, I remember my dad being on business calls, and he'd just turn on the pigeon and he'd just start talking pigeon to customers. So that was super funny. I loved that. And my dad, he could walk on his hands. I think his record was 100 steps on his hands. And he wasn't a gymnast. I don't know. If you lived in the Kahala area, in the 80s, you probably saw my dad walking on his hands on the side of the road. So he's just a character.
What personality traits do you think that you have that perhaps you got from your dad?
I don't know, not being intimidated to try to figure things out. So.
And what personality traits do you think you have that are from your mom?
Oh, that's a good question. She's super artistic, and she taught me how to paint when I was a kid. She would take me to these very adult painting classes, not adult in any weird meaning, but just adult ladies that want to paint. And so I'd be like in an adult learning setting with, I'd be 12 for, 6 hours with some oil paints. And so that's how I learned how to paint. So I still do paint. She's super generous, and I'd like to think I'm generous.
So your dad was really into the outdoors. You, to this day, are very much into the outdoors, activities in the water. You probably still run. As a kid, talk about time you spent outdoors. Like, what were you doing? You were in the water, you're in the mountains. Like, what kind of stuff do you remember best?
Oh, yeah. So we lived on the top of Wailanui Ridge. We lived at the very last house. So the forest was our backyard. So Kevin, my brother, and I, we were only 18 months apart. So we hung out a lot together, especially when we were little. And we would traipse through that forest all the time, barefooted all the time, in jeans and bare feet. And we knew the back trails, and it was just magical. So, then once I could drive, I was at Sandy's or Makapu pretty much all the time, or at a friend's house who lived on Diamond Head, and we go surfing out there a lot. But yeah, Sandy's was kind of my spot for body, and I'd be in the water. I wouldn't hang out on the beach. I'd basically go to get in the water, shower, and then leave. I wasn't one of the ones that like to lay out. I just would get bored. So.
Were you body surfing and surfing with other girls? Like, who are you going with?
I usually would go by myself. I was very brave. I'm not that way anymore, but I liked to go when it was big, and I think I started going out when it was big, or at least started catching bigger waves, because I was this little howly girl that no one would let me take a wave, and so they'd hoot at me and, tell me to get out of the way. So finally I'm like, you get to know who's going to go and who's not going to go. And you're like, okay, he's not going to go to this wave, I'm going. And then I just got used to taking big waves. And then it was kind of, those are the days I wanted to go out, because there's less people in the water and I could actually get some rides. So.
And were you ever self-conscious being out there as a woman by yourself? I mean, were people saying things to you? Like, were there any incidents?
No, I never had any trouble. I don't know. Yeah. And I always felt super comfortable. Yeah. And I'd go out at Point Panic too sometimes. But I think in the beginning I get the looks, but then once I got in the water and people knew I wasn't going to drown, they kind of left me alone.
Of course, Point Panic mentioned in Replinger's song, Tell Fate Unagi I Love Her, where he body surfed Point Panic and gets caught in the tide. But you surfed Point Panic.
Yeah, body surf. Yeah.
And you body surfed Point Panic, and you did not go to the Great Omelet in the Sky, right?
No. I don't know why. It was fearless. I mean, I remember having some pretty major wipeouts where, you're just like, slammed on your back on the sand, and like, okay. Or which way's up? Because when you're body surfing, you don't have a flotation device. You don't know which way's up, right? If you have a boogie board, it's floating. Your leash is telling you where to go. But when you're when you're body surfing and you're in the sand and the water and you're all, and it's 10 feet deep because it's bigger and breaking further out. Anyway, I remember some times where that Rap Replinger song came into play where all you're thinking about is air.
All I could think about was one thing. Air.
You
You mentioned being a Haole girl going surfing by yourself in the surf. What did your family think about, being basically a Haole family in Hawaii for like 150 years? Was there ever discussion about like kind of what it all meant?
I feel that more on the now as an adult and being on the Big Island more than I did on Oahu growing up. I mean, I do remember wanting to have brown hair and brown eyes. I remember, and brown skin. I remember wanting to fit in a little better in certain circumstances.
So you are in what they call the 13-year club at Punahou School, meaning you started in kindergarten, graduated as a senior. So you started out and you played in the Winnie Playground, the fabled Winnie Playground that's now been replaced by something else. So what were those days like?
Oh my gosh, really magical. Yeah, like bare feet and just very safe, very nurturing, yet also very free, and got to run around like little crazy banshees and have a good time. And somehow we still learn some stuff. So,
all right, so let's fast forward to high school. So how do you think you fit in socially?
I don't know. I think maybe I was kind of a goofy kid. I don't know. I mean, I ran track and cross country. So I had friends there, and then I paddled. I think I kind of knew everybody, and I don't know if I know I hung out on like senior year for sure, hung out on the Cook Hall steps. That was a really good perch to just be able to watch the campus, and see what's going on. But I didn't really feel like I was stuck there. I felt like I could go into the library and hang out with that clique or go down to the Bingham benches and say hi to the surfer guys and walk by the football picnic table and say hi to my cousin and whoever else is over there. I paddled with Punahou, and that was a really cool paddling experience with Marion Lyman Mercer was our coach, and she taught me so much just about life, and so paddling was probably one of my favorite sports. And I was a steersman.
Have you ever paddled from Oahu to Molokai?
No, the race goes Molokai to Oahu. Yeah. I did that once. I paddled it once, and I actually was on the escort boat probably 3 different times watching my dad.
So let's talk about academics. Were there any kind of breakthrough intellectual moments for you at Punahou where you kind of said like, oh yeah, this topic or this teacher, or you kind of feel like you turned a corner intellectually?
Well, I don't know about intellectually, but artistically, yes. It's funny, going to Punahou was super hard for me. I mean, I pulled all-nighters more at Punahou than I did in college. But once I got to college was really easy. But I would say the biggest draw for me at Punahou was their art programs. And Hugh Jenkins was my teacher for a lot of that, and he's just awesome. And he lives here on the Big Island too. It's been a few years, but I ran into him and got to go to his glass blowing studio. But I took jewelry making from him. And so there was jewelry making 1 and jewelry making 2. And then I asked him if I could do a, self-study for jewelry 3, and he let me do that. And that was so cool. And I got to go up in the jewelry room and independently work. And then also glass blowing was just another, that's where I just realized I didn't know someone from going to Punahou could be an artist. Like, I didn't know that was okay. I thought I was supposed to be a lawyer or a doctor. But I love the fact that they really valued that part of learning. And that's where I found my safe place. I wasn't really great at academics, but I did good in art, and I felt, that was my strong suit. So.
Did you party much? However one defines it.
Yeah, I did. I mean, didn't we all? Did you?
Oh, not all of us did.
Do that.
So what was, were you like a leader in the partying department, or were you a tagger along? I mean, it seems like you're kind of a creator of fun. And so were you leading the charge at some of these activities?
No, I was fully immersed, but I don't think I didn't have the means to lead the charge, as far as like, I didn't have a place. I remember, okay, this is so funny. So I would go to any party you wanted to have, but I was terrified of having a party. And one time my parents went out of town, and my brother decided to tell everybody that they were out of town. And I think I told my closest 10 friends, yeah, come over, whatever. Well, it turned into this gigantic block party at the top of Waialainui Ridge, and I freaked out.
How old were you?
I was probably 16.
Was it one of those situations where it's like, hey, everybody, my parents are gone, come on over. And this is pre-internet, right? So everyone tells everyone else, and then the kids just show up, and then
yes.
maybe the
And
cops.
so you don't even know how big it's going to be. And that, I blame that on my brother. And then the cops came, and then everybody got cleared out. I mean, the party was out on the street because it was a cul-de-sac. I mean, it was like a block party. It got big. But, I did go to my fair share of those kind of parties at other people's blocks, and it was much better.
So when you were graduating from Punahou in, I guess, May or June, I can't remember, of 1988, what was your mindset? Like, what were you thinking? You had spent your entire life, or rather your entire academic career at Punahou. You'd spent your entire life in Hawaii, largely on Oahu, partly on Big Island, but you were going off to the mainland. So what was in your mind at the time?
Get me out of here as fast as possible. I wanted out. I wanted independence, and I wanted something different. I didn't care where. I was like, get me to the mainland. And it's a good thing I didn't care where, because I went to the University of North Dakota. And I cared then. Yeah, it was so bizarre. They looked different, they acted different, they talked different. It was really weird. And I remember I wanted to get a picture of myself in shorts and barefoot in the snow. And so I was get out there, and my roommate took a picture, and then I got super sick. I learned my lesson. So, but yeah, it was major culture shock and environmental shock.
How did you present yourself? Like when you said, I'm from Hawaii, my family's been there for 150 years. Did people have questions for you?
Oh yeah. Like, why are you so white? All these things. Are you Hawaiian? Do you hula? Do you surf? Even, do you live in a hut? All these things. You're like, have you turned on the TV lately? That's not how it is. Yeah.
So maybe final question, then I'll let you go. But you have 2 sons, right?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I have 2 sons as well. Can you think of any experiences or things you've taught them, or just a way that your family, lives that is similar to the way that your parents brought you up, and maybe their parents? So just something that's kind of like a tradition that you're very happy to kind of carry on.
My dad has cows. And so when my dad passed away, my husband agreed to take over the herd, and my kids go help with the branding and deworming and castrating and all that kind of fun stuff. They get to play cowboy a couple times a year, so that's kind of fun. And I know my dad grew up doing that. I didn't. I always wanted to be a part of that life, but so now I get to sort of dabble in it.
Is there anything that you wish your classmates knew about you when you were in high school?
I definitely think I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I kind of let people know who I am, and I'm not very guarded at all. So I don't think so, other than wanting people to think that I'm just good, you know.